FTB just released a new skyblock pack called FTB Skies 2, which is the next generation of the original FTB Skies, except this time for Minecraft 121.1. There's tons of new custom mechanics, player-driven progression, and deep integration between popular and custom mods to provide hours of engaging content. I'll take you through my first couple Minecraft days, and along the way we'll cover some of the new and unique features included in the pack. But also I'll give you some different early game tips and suggestions I've discovered, and of course, we'll have some fun along the way. If you're interested in watching the rest of my FTB Skies 2 playthrough, you can always follow along live at my Twitch channel, MCTC Reese, or if you can't catch them live, I also have a separate YouTube VOD channel, MCTC VODs, where the entire series will be uploaded over the next couple of weeks. FTB Skies 2 has a simple end goal: complete a fully reworked Feed the Beast pyramid. But the journey to do that will test my modded Minecraft knowledge, skills, and automation abilities, so we better get straight into it. As with most of the modern FTB packs, we start in this absolutely insane build. Fitting with the sky theme, this time we're on a massive spaceship with islands and ships and just all kinds of stuff around us. FTB has had a lot of different spawn builds, but I have to say, this one might be the craziest in terms of scale. This spawn isn't just great because it looks cool, but also because it makes playing this pack on servers extremely easy. To get started, we first have to head over to these signs, where we click on this activate button to trigger a pretty cool looking animation that reveals our portal. Once stepping into the portal, we are met with our first decision: what starter island will we choose? FTB offers 8 different options that give you a pretty large range between challenging or just beautiful aesthetic islands. Let's quickly take a look at each one, and I'll give some personal pros and cons of each. First, let's start with the OG pure skyblock. Not much going on here: some dirt, some grass, a tree, and some water. The pros: lots of room for flexibility, and of course gives you the most authentic classic skyblock vibe. However, the cons: it'll definitely be a slightly slower start to the pack with so few starting blocks and resources. And of course, it has the classic chance to get yourself stuck if all of your saplings immediately fall off the edge, or you accidentally block off your only water source. Next up, a similar returning island theme, the geode, which basically looks like a giant amethyst geode with all kinds of goodies in the middle. The amethyst is mostly just for looks, because you won't find any budding amethyst blocks or fully grown clusters, but will have a decent amount of block of amethyst. In my opinion, this is the most well-rounded, pun not intended, starter island, with lots of flat space and ease of expansion, as well as some great starting resources like tons of dirt, grass, moss, water pools including seagrass, kelp, trees of the best variant, and even some industrial hemp plants. The next island is a cozy one, the magical floating cottage. This one features a really cute jungle hut right in the middle with some really nice detail and even some bookshelves ready to go for a full enchanting setup. Outside, there are some really nice custom trees and a pretty large lake with a dock. This island has some extra resources like glowberries and lilacs, but doesn't have the kelp or amethyst that the last island did. Sticking with the magical theme, let's check out the Mystic Grove, which is kind of like a mashup of the last 2 islands. This one is super detailed, highlighted by these 2 awesome looking cherry trees in the middle. There's some nice unique resources like peonies, kelp, sea pickles, and even some turtle eggs. But because of all the detail, there isn't really much space to build without either expanding or doing some damage to the island structures. Next, the Soulful Island. This has a much more autumn vibe with some darker, earthy colors, including these really nice runewood trees with the amber leaves, as well as some water and deep slate patches. And of course, this nice little house in the middle, which has some nice detail and some really good starter base items like beds and chests. This one even has some fancy ore veins of soulstone, which along with the different trees and ether spread around the island helps give you a nice boost if you want to get into the mod Malum. Our 6th island is the Fishing Island, which has some really nice oak azalea trees, bamboo, a really cool middle house with lots of details and useful starter base features. And of course, as the name implies, lots of space for fishing, which may be important depending on our next decision coming soon. Oh, and how could I forget the biggest perk of this island? A little owl friend. Our 7th island, the Steampunk Island, switches the vibe over to a more industrial feel, and by far has the most detailed and intricate builds on the island, including this massive house in the middle, a bunch of drills, gears, cranes, windmills, and just endless cool stuff. Spoiler alert, this is the island I chose for my main playthrough. While this island has the largest variety of starting resources, it also does feel a little cramped, and there isn't much open space to start setting up your creations. So the way I'll be using this island is making it the highlighted central piece of my base, and building my machines and creations on their own islands and platforms surrounding the island. Now our last island. which isn't really much of an island, and that's because it's more of a challenge mode. You start with 4 critical plonked items on the ground, which you can pick up by right-clicking. The most important being this personal shrinking device, which allows you to enter a large compact machine. This mode makes not only the resources a challenge to obtain, but also makes space your most valuable resource. The goal is to complete the entire pack by only building in the compact machine. You'll need to make some more compact machines to go full compactception in order to have the space required to complete the pack. And you'll also have to bone meal the moss in order to get azalea bushes to grow your first tree. Best of luck to you if you attempt this challenge. Hey, Future Reese here. Hopefully you've been enjoying this video so far. If so, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. Based on my channel statistics, only 1.2% of the people currently watching are subscribed, which is a nice improvement from my last video, but still a ways to go. So it'd be great if you could help me out a little bit and join the growing 1%. I have tons of awesome videos coming in the near future, so you definitely won't want to miss them. If you were paying attention, you may have seen some special shulker boxes throughout our island tour. Keep your eyes open for a special Easter egg you can find on each island. Each island has a special note and some slightly different rewards attuned to that island. Now that we've made our decision and made it to our island, it's time to officially start the clock. One of the key differentiators for FTB Skies 2 from other Skyblock packs is that the beginning game tries to depart from the classic ex nihilo start that has been common for the last couple years. This blends some features like the dripper seen in Ocean Block and the vanilla composter for bone meal to get hemp for early string, but also new things like the fire starter to make your first campfire and furnace, as well as a pretty interesting way to get a critical starting ingredient, the grains of infinity. Getting your first grains of infinity is actually pretty easy. All you have to do is, yeet yourself off the edge. Once you get to the void, you'll be given 1 grain. However, no need to fear because FTB Skies 2 does have loopable void, so we'll now loop back to the top of the world and can either keep falling to keep getting more grains of infinity or see how good our water bucket clutch skills are and land back on our island. The quest book does a great job of explaining the early game path, so I would highly recommend checking that out since it can be pretty easy to feel stuck if you try to follow that stereotypical Skyblock start cycle. One of the things you'll notice as you collect quests is you'll start racking up coins. These coins can be right-clicked to add to your wallet, which you can see how many you have above your player UI. Additionally, there are 3 buttons in the UI that allow you to take coins out of your wallet. The top is for silver, which is the base coin. Then the gold coins, which have a value of 10, and crystal coins, which have a value of 50. The questbook adds a new chapter called the FTB Shop, which has tons of items available for you to spend your hard-earned coins on. These items are split into a couple different categories. The first being for early game, with useful items like AE2 processor bundles and drives for RS or AE2, create ingredients, drawers, and a whole lot more. However, the most important early game item to buy is a dried ghast. Being on a skyblock alone can be quite lonely, so FTB Skies 2 gives you a companion, which eventually will be very useful for exploring some surrounding structures. Because this pack is in Minecraft 121.1, happy ghasts haven't officially been added to the game yet, but the pack adds a companion mod called Gas Update, which basically mirrors the same functionality of the vanilla gas. This means to start, we need to place our dried ghast in water to get him hydrated. I would strongly recommend doing this in an enclosed area, otherwise you may get yourself stuck into an hour-long rescue mission like I did on my playthrough. Lucky for you guys, based on my experience, I have convinced the FTB dev team to add a lead in this quest reward to help make it a little bit easier to capture and tame your ghast friends, so hopefully by the time you're watching this video, you don't have the same issue I did. There are also other items from mid and late game that scale in price pretty quick, as well as some helpful loot bags if you want to test your luck based on a pool of items in a certain category like resources, mechanism installers, or the most useful, Grandma's Treat, which gives you a bunch of high quality foods. And the last category contains a bunch of summon events to make it a little bit easier if you're trying to get certain mobs either for fun or as part of the upcoming progression. I would definitely recommend checking this shop often, not only because I would guess that there may be some new additions as the pack continues to update, but also because some of these items can be extremely helpful in aiding parts of progression. Of course, assuming you have the money for it. For the early game, we have 2 main goals to get to our next major stepping point, and that is to make a strainer, which gives all kinds of different Minecraft saplings, some water plants and pebbles, and some nature essence. And the second being a Skyblock classic, the compact cobblestone generator. After we've done those, we are brought to our next major decision point, our resource generation path. One of the new features of FTB Skies 2 is that there are 3 unique but balanced paths that guide you through the early game resource generation, based on whatever your preference is. These paths don't actually change the game itself, and regardless of what path you choose, all mods still remain available. But what the path does do is lock you into an associated quest line, which gives you carefully selected quest rewards that help support your early game journey. If you want, you can always circle back and try out the mods in any of the other paths, but without those tasty early quest rewards to boost your progress. The first path is the Path of Crystalmancy, which allows you to harness the power of budding geodes, crystal transformation, and arcane material synthesis using custom mechanics like FTB Easy Crystals, Geo Ore Novu, and Productive Metalworks. This is a really fun one that allows you to make all kinds of budding resource blocks using dyes or the foundry, which gives you an associated crystal that can be smelted or processed into the final ingredient. For example, the first budding block you'll probably make is the budding iron block, which is made by right-clicking white dye on the void crystal catalyst, which you can kind of think of as the base budding crystal block. This will convert it into a budding iron block, which will slowly grow clusters that, after fully grown, will give you iron geode shards, which you can then smelt directly into iron ingots. If you choose this path, the quest will give you some really helpful ingredients like an AE2 growth accelerator and crystal resonance generator, which you can place directly adjacent to your budding crystal blocks to massively increase growth speed. You also get this Fortune 3 pickaxe, which greatly increases the amount of shards you receive from right-clicking clusters, since like Amethyst, Fortune does increase the drop amount. This is the resource pack I chose in my playthrough, which was mainly because it seemed like something pretty new and different, and I was interested to see how good it is. But so far, I have been absolutely blown away by how many resources you can produce very quickly, and I'm really excited to start looking at ways to use modular routers or other mods to fully automate this process and make some pretty cool resource batteries. The second path is the Path of Prospecting. This one is a little more standard and reminiscent of FTB Skies 1, allowing you to make resources by creating powerful contraptions using create and create sifting. Inserting different items into a sifter with a mesh will give you a range of different items like coal, gems, crystals, and ore chunks. The ore chunks, which when combined make ore clusters that can be smelted for ingots. There are multiple tiers and types of meshes that give you different loot tables and different drop percentages, as well as an upgraded brass sifter. So I would definitely recommend taking a look in JEI to see the most efficient ways to make different items, because sometimes the higher tier meshes aren't always the best for generating certain resources. And last but certainly not least, the Path of Cultivation. This one is a mix of old and new, allowing you to dive into sustainable farming through mystical agriculture, productive bees, and fishing overhaul. To get started, you get to do your best Animal Crossing impression and do some fishing, which has a slight rework to allow you to get more drops if you pull up your fishing rod when the tick gets to the gold sections at the top or bottom of this fishing circle. Fishing loot tables have been completely reworked to give you all kinds of essences from mystical agriculture, and the quest reward gives you a highly enchanted Imperium fishing rod, which makes the speed of fishing way quicker and gives you tons more essence with Luck of the Sea. However, the expectation isn't that you'll fish resources until the end of time. Instead, fishing is the gateway to get you into mystical agriculture. Once you fish enough Inferium and resource essence, you can eventually create mystical agriculture seeds, which will allow you to start setting up massive resource farms, accelerated by the growth accelerator and harvester blocks given to you by the quest rewards. If picking to do only one path, I think this path has the slowest start of the 3, but it also scales the best towards the end game. Although I'm still very early in my playthrough, I'm thinking that the answer to the best resource setups for the mid and end game will probably be some combination of pieces from all 3 resource paths. Now, in the time that we spent looking at all the different resource trees, our little friend has turned into a bigger friend, and now combined with our gas saddle a quest gave us earlier, we can leave our island and do some early game exploring. That being said, the gas, while happy, are pretty slow, so we'll definitely need to move to some method of flight like a jetpack pretty quickly. But hey, at least we can go see what kinds of awesome structures and loot are out there. FTB Skies 2 has a whole bunch of different random structures throughout the world, and while we won't cover all of them here, let's take a look at some of the most important and cool looking destinations you may want to be on the lookout for in the early game. First is the Sky Village, which has this really nice cherry and floral theme. These are randomly generated with all kinds of different houses, islands, and bridges, similar to how villages in vanilla Minecraft spawn. Not only are they home to villagers, which with the Easy Villager mod you can shift right click to pick up and bring back to your base for easy trading, but also has a chance to spawn pretty much all of the different kinds of plants, crops, and flowers that you can bring back to your base and farm in case your starter island doesn't include them. Some key ones are the 2 tall flowers, carrots, potatoes, a bunch of different plants from Farmer's Delight, and Mage Bloom, which is a very important one if you're planning on getting into ours. Depending on which houses you find in the village, you can get tons of workstations and even an enchanting table if you're lucky. But the best part of these villages are the chests. There are tons of different looter chests and barrels all throughout the village that have tons of awesome things in the loot tables, including food, resources, and even low-tier pipes and upgrades. And with some good luck, you can find relics which give tons of awesome passive perks to your player and can be upgraded over time with experience. At this point, your inventory is probably already filling up with lots of stuff, so be on the lookout for sacks that can help with some transportable storage before you might have a backpack. Be careful though, because if you have too many sacks at once, you'll become over encumbered, which means you move a lot slower and eventually are not even able to jump. Next up is a slightly darker structure, the volcano, which has all kinds of important modded ingredients like a bunch of the different create rock variants, skystone for AE2, spawners for slimes and magma slimes, R's trees, and even some mystical agriculture coal seeds. Sticking with the darker theme, you may come across this massive structure, the Arcane Library, which not only looks amazing, but also has some more R's tree types and a whole bunch of R's stuff that can help jumpstart your introduction to R's. Most notably a storage lectern, which can serve as an early game searchable storage inventory. I would definitely recommend trying to find one of these because there are so many chests and awesome loot, but be on the lookout for some dangerous traps along the way. There are also tons of less than safe structures like the Blazing Desert and Ruined Citadel that do have some good loot, but more importantly some extremely powerful mobs and bosses, so you may want to steer away from these until you're better geared up. There is a chapter in the quest book called the Traveler's Quest, which has a list of most of the main structures found in FTB Skies 2 and what their main purpose is, so that's a pretty helpful reference. Plus, once you have diamonds and netherite, you can make an explorer's compass, which helps point you to the nearest structure you pick if you're looking for something specific. One thing you may have noticed is I didn't mention a stronghold, and that's because in FTB Skies 2, in order to go to the end, you actually craft the end crystal frames themselves instead of finding them in a structure. These frames aren't exactly cheap and use nether stars, skulk, R's marks, and ether, but at least they craft in batches of 4, which means you only need to make 3 sets to make it to the end. And as always, be careful how you place your end frames, because like vanilla Minecraft, they have to be placed with orientation from the center in order to actually make the portal. Now back to our island. Something I sort of alluded to earlier is that most of the starter islands have grass on them, except it isn't grass, it's actually fake grass. As the questbook explains, you can get real grass by throwing a piece of dirt and a grain of infinity into water to get a grass seed, which when right-clicked on dirt will convert that dirt into real grass. The grass will have a different color based on your biome and its color map, so don't be surprised if it looks a little bit different than the fake grass, which is placed with a specific biome and color that fits the theme. My suggestion would be, if you're planning on using your starter island as more of a home base and doing most of your building somewhere separate, then go ahead and make a new grass platform totally separate from the main island so the fake grass doesn't spread to your platform. If not, then it probably isn't a bad idea to go ahead and just break all of the fake grass on your island and place it back down as dirt to let your grass seeds spread real grass slowly but surely. Unfortunately, mixing the two grasses can get pretty confusing, especially if in similar colored biomes. Another suggestion is for lots of early game bone meal, the 2 tall flowers are extremely powerful. If you have one on your island or find one while exploring, you can use a hoe in your offhand to apply a bone meal effect that normally you would use for growing plants or trees. But with 2 tall flowers, it'll drop tons and tons of flowers which you can feed directly into the composter. In my playthrough so far, one new but extremely useful item is transfer labels. These have both a insert and extract variant as well as options for either transferring items or fluids. They are pretty cheap to craft, but the power of these is that they are zero width, almost like a sticker that you can place between 2 blocks that are directly adjacent to move items or fluids between the 2 faces. This allows you to make some extremely compact setups, and so far they have been most useful for pulling items directly out of the water strainer as well as the bonsai pot, removing the need for crafting some item pipes early on. They are a little bit slow to start, but you can stack multiple transfer labels on the same block face to increase transfer speeds proportionally. And of course, not much of a tip, but really a reminder that FTB Skies 2 adds the ability to use /home to teleport back to wherever you set your home using /sethome, and also /back to teleport back to wherever you recently teleported from, either by dying or using /home. These are on cooldowns and can be used without enabling cheats. Some people see these commands as cheating, which sometimes I'm in the same boat, but because they were specifically enabled to be available without cheats, I feel like that gives me the green light for this pack. Just make sure not to accidentally leave your happy gas behind because it doesn't have access to /home. FTB Skies 2 also adds a whole bunch of random events. I won't cover them all here, but there are a couple good ones that can give you some great perks and items, but also potentially be on the lookout for a goat that may attempt to yeet you off the edge. There is a quest in the quest book that lists out all the random events if you want to check them out. And if you think any, or all, of them are annoying, you can always disable them using /events toggle along with its name. As I mentioned at the beginning, this video is really mostly targeted for the very early game, and to walk you through some of the new features and options you have as part of FTB Skies 2. But if you're interested in another video in a couple weeks with more updates about the progression and any other tips or suggestions I have, or even another version with the endgame stuff, then definitely let me know in the comments. This is a slightly different style video than the previous 3 I've uploaded on this channel, so I'm always interested to try some new stuff out and see what you guys like. And no need to fear, there'll be more mod labs coming soon. Quick shout out to Sarah and the FTB team, not only for putting this pack together, but also providing some valuable input while putting this video together. And an additional reminder that I'll be doing a full FTB Skies 2 playthrough on my Twitch channel, MCTC Reese. And my first stream VOD has already been posted to my VOD YouTube channel if you want 4 hours of FTB Skies 2 gameplay. Links for both of those channels are in the description. I appreciate you guys watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to drop a subscribe and a like to let me know. But I gotta get back to making some progress, so I'll say bye to you here. Thanks for watching.